Hey there, and welcome to the season finale of the Reading Writers podcast. My name is Sandy Butchers. I'm the author and illustrator of the Singularian Grimoire anthologies on Patreon, and I'm glad you made it back to us as we wrap up the very first season with a bang.
And I'm Lydia Stevens, author of the Ginger Davenport Escapades and the Hellfire series, former literary agency intern and acquisitions assistant, and developmental editor. So welcome to the show.
Reading is proud to be an official sponsor of Write Hive, the non-profit writing community providing free, inclusive events, programs, and resources for writers of all backgrounds. Did you know they are having a silent auction from the 2nd to the 7th of December? All kinds of really awesome goodies will be up for the highest bidder, and the proceeds go straight into Write Hive's organization so they can provide and host even more really awesome events in the very near future. Now, Reading will also be pitching in with some really cool stuff like query critique packages, a limited edition art print of the Singularian, and much, much more. So if you want to get your hands on some of this really cool stuff, keep an eye out on the website writehive.org. As the year is slowly drawing closer to its end, what would be a more perfect time to look ahead at our goals for next year? But also, with this season to be jolly approaching rapidly, this week Lydia and I are talking about market trends and choosing between writing to market or following your own path as a self-published author. But before we dive into the meat of today's video, we'd like you to take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button down below. About 48% of all you people watching us aren't currently subscribed, and although we really appreciate your viewership, if you really want to support the Reading Writers podcast and make sure we keep the content coming, be sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Also, if you can find a hidden coffee cup somewhere in this video, comment the timestamp of when you've seen it, and you'll win a free ebook either by Lydia or myself. With the season of presents, gifts, hot chocolate, and sappy romance novels on rainy days drawing closer, we'll see market trends shifting rapidly. Where with huge blockbuster films like, for example, June, we've seen the sci-fi genre gain a lot more popularity over the last couple of months, and with YA fantasy series trending on Netflix, we've seen book sales skyrocket. November and especially December are pretty notorious when it comes to selling a credible amount of romance and holiday feel-good books. Now, this has been the case for many, many years, and so knowing this as a writer, this might just be something you can work with if you want to push those sales numbers as a self-published author further up the bar. Lydia, what do you think?
I think there's something to be said for the fact that these trends in the industry do so well during specific times of year, because like with getting geared up for the holidays, right, it's a mood. It's people want the hot cocoa and they want, the Christmas music, and they want, or Thanksgiving, and they're all about, the turkey and stuff like that. Even Halloween, you start to see some more of the paranormal pop up, witches and ghosts and stuff like that. So if you're an indie author and you're looking at trends in the market, definitely look at the time of year and what books are publishing and what are selling. So for example, I've got a Christmas novella that I'm going to be coming out with because people eat that stuff up. I mean, take a look at the Hallmark channel at Christmas. I mean, you've got, the big city girl, and she goes back home to the small town, where she gives up the major corporate job and falls in love with the high school sweetheart, and it's this Christmas miracle because she falls through the ice or some weirdness, or something like that. But those movies are tried and true in the fact that at Christmas time people gobble them up. They want them, and it's not just Christmas; it's any holiday. You can start to see these trends. 4th of July is another one where you see a lot of military pop up. And so depending on what genre you write, this is definitely true in the romance genre, but it can also be said for, you pointed out with Dune, we're going to start to see a lot of the science fiction trending, books that are similar to that sort of storyline. Writing to market is huge, because if you don't have a market for your book, who's your target audience going to be? So I think that's, one of the biggest things that a self-published author, and a lot that I've been learning about lately, of, what specifically is my market, and who are who are going to be the readers in my community. And they want these types of books. They want the trending books at Christmas. They want the trending books at 4th of July. You know, they want, you know, the Halloween scary story or something like that. So,
Yeah.
You know, that's, I think, and there are ways to research it. I've heard several people talk about like Kalytics. That is a subscription service, I believe, but you know, it gives a breakdown of the major genres and what's selling in those genres, and then you can pick that genre and write to that market.
But the danger in there is that you're always one step behind of the trend, right? So either you have to look at this a long way ahead, because this comes down to planning what you're going to write when you're going to write it.
Yeah. So, I mean, as an indie author, you know, one of the things that I'm learning lately is product. So it's putting the books out. So you have to carefully weigh quantity over quality. You know, there are some authors who can put out a book a month. That does not mean that you have to do that. I can't do that. I don't have time to do that. Not at this point, because I'm not just a complete full-time author. So it would be nice if I had that much energy, but I don't. And I have a family, you know, and you also have to remember that, you know, in this business, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your family, especially at the holidays, because that is major time for family. So yes, you really have to plan ahead. Like if you want to put out a Christmas novella for your reader group, offer it maybe as a free gift, or, you know, it's your reader magnet or something like that. You don't want to put it out on St. Patty's Day. That's not going to work. So you need to kind of plan when you start putting these things out. And, you know, one of the biggest things with following trends and stuff like that is it doesn't just have to be on Amazon. It can be, what are people talking about on social media? What are the big books right now? Because I guarantee in a month or two, now that Dune is out, and that's a major thing, horror. Squid Games, that's a major show on Netflix right now. In a month or two, we're going to start to see a trend of, you know, books that are similar to this, to these stories in the horror genre, and in the, you know, because it sparks people's ideas. And that's so key. So the publishing industry has always been notoriously slow, yes. And especially in the indie, you know, you're looking at like a month or two before you start to see these trends pop up. But I think once you kind of get the hang of it in your genre and what sort of, you know, perpetuates the trends in your specific genre and in your reading communities, you can then start to follow along. And one of the most important things to have is a publishing schedule. I am quickly learning that it's easy to say, I'm going to put out a book every few months to try to get product in front of my reading community. It's another thing to actually stick to it. So, yeah, so, you know, and you, especially you have a book a month with your Singularian Grimoire anthology. So, you know the importance of having a publishing schedule and really being committed to staying on that schedule so that you don't disappoint your readers and you don't fall behind in your work. And
exactly. But then again, falling behind in work, I mean, it happens sometimes. I mean, sometimes I know that by the 20th of each month, the book should go to the printers. Right. And sometimes I'm just finishing up the editing on the 19th. So, and for me, that's falling behind while it's basically still being on schedule. But I prefer having some space between the actual deadline and finishing up the work. But I did discover that working with deadlines on a monthly basis, I mean, I can do this because my books are about 10,000, 12,000 words maximum. Mm-hmm. These are like short episodes.
Right.
So I just want to clarify that I would say it's not really possible to write a very good quality book every month if you're going to go for full length. So, sorry, say that again.
I am going to disagree with you. I can think of 5 authors, indie authors, who make 6 figures a year. And granted, they have been doing this for a few years now. Mm-hmm. This is their career. Okay, so this is what they do full time, all day, every day. And I recently was listening to a podcast of by Chris Fox, 5,000 words a day. So you figure 65,000 word book. He's got that book done in 2 weeks ish. Because he always overshoots his target, and he not 5,000 words a day. I'm sorry, 5,000 words an hour. It is possible, and it can be, yes, and they can be quality books. I mean, these people are successful for a reason. And he'll say, you know, I have typos in my books. And he said, you know, I have to consider how picky am I going to get when I know my readers, you know, a few of them might point them out, and when they do, he fixes them.
But I think that's a liberty you can get when you have a really big platform. Like if I come up with typos in my book, people are gonna.
Right. So yes, you're right. It all depends on where you are in terms of writing and your career. As a writer, you may not be a full-time writer, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I see this all the time on social media of people arguing of, you can't possibly put out a quality book in a month. Well, there are people who can. Me, no. It's my books are a hot mess after I get done writing, you know, and I could probably write the book in a month, but then I need to really sit down and spend some time with it. So,
but I'm also thinking, I mean, what defines quality then?
You know,
because I'm obviously on the side of disagreeing with this, and that's perfectly okay. But I'm just thinking, if we are saying that people can push out a quality novel every month, here's what I'm thinking: either they write the same format time and time again, so they do a trick, they perform a trick, they write a story within that trick, and then they write the book, and they can do that, of course. Or you can see things like typos or structural issues popping up in a book. So I think in a way, yes, you could write a quality book every month, depending on your definition of quality, I think.
Exactly. That is the key right there, is people define quality completely differently. You know, so for example, Chris, his readers eat up his books. They love them. So that for him is probably quality. The fact that he is a full-time writer, you know, he's making bank, he's paying his bills you know, that is quality by his definition, because this is what he wants to do with his life. Now, you know, if you kind of put it on the flip side of traditional publishing, that is not quality. You know, and you see this between traditional publishing versus self-publishing a lot, because the traditional publishing industry is so slow, and so much time is spent on making this one project that an agent or an editor is working on, you know, the best possible book that it can be. Now, have I seen traditionally published authors who are putting out 2 to 3 books a year? Yes, that is considered a lot in traditional publishing.
Yeah, that's exceptional.
You know, you have to figure the publishing cycle for one book in traditional publishing is 1 year to 2 years to get it published. And that's quick. That's a quick turnaround. Yeah. So the fact that this, you know, this particular author that I'm thinking of is putting out 2 to 3 books per year, that is considered a lot. And I know she has a plotting process, just like Chris Fox. He completely plots his novels before he sits and writes them. There are pantsers who can do this. Brandon Sanderson is another really great one. He can sit down and write a book in like 2 to 3 days. He did a video about it years ago. I remember where this idea came, he plotted it out, and then he sat down for however many hours and just wrote the thing. He then probably went back and spent a lot of time on editing, which is important, you know. So quality is defined differently for everyone. Would a full-time author who's making 6 figures a year tell you that a few typos is not going to be quality to them? Probably not. They're doing what they want to do for a career. Is someone who, you know, they've really devoted years and years to this manuscript, and they want it to be absolutely perfect, and it goes through the traditional publishing process, and, you know, a reader comes to them with the and, you know, you've got 2 typos. That might be absolutely devastating to that person. So
I'd be one of those people. I cringe every time I see a misplaced comma, or, oh man, I cannot deal with that. For me, that would not be quality. If like, and this is a very thin line because I know there are typos in my work, and I do my very best to keep them out, and I know for a fact that if I look back to them, we'll find something. I put you onto this as an editor, you'll find something too. And a part of me dies inside every damn time, because for me, the quality standard is don't have any typos in your book. And this is something, this comes from, I think, an age of an era where books were manifested without any sort of mistake. Everything that was in a book was truth. And it might be a little bit old-fashioned because exactly with the whole evolution of self-publishing and, stuff going on, it is more likely to have typos in a book. So, and I think I'm just a bit conservative that way, but for me, that would never go as quality.
Yeah, and that's totally, I completely understand where you're coming from. And you said it yourself, the nature of the indie industry has completely changed how some people define quality. For me, it's not so much typos. I know I have typos in my books, or a few of them, and somebody has come to me and said this. You also have to consider your readers. Does it really, really bother your readers? Or is it something that they can look past? And I've had a couple readers say to me, there's a few typos, but your story was. So as a developmental editor, I really, really focus on that. Like, that's my forte, and I love doing that. And so if I have a reader come to me and say, I love the story, that for me defines quality. And there's no concrete parameters on that. I mean, you could have a book which is completely typo free, and you're reading, and it's just. So I think in a lot of ways, quality is not only defined by the writer themselves, it's defined by the readers as well. What are the readers that you're targeting science fiction specific, and are they absolutely fanatical that there cannot be any typos in your books? So you have to have a balance between you, the writer, and your readers. Like, what are they willing to accept from you as quality? So once you get to know your reader community, I think that really, you can kind of tailor your definition to what they're looking for as well. This is one of those, there is no right, wrong. There's no black or white. It's, with everything in this industry, there's, this broad spectrum of how people define quality.
And it's evolving. It's continuously evolving. So today it would be okay to have a couple of typos as long as the story is great. In a couple of months, it could be, I'm not going to say completely the other way around, but you see that even there are trends within the definition of quality. And I'm not sure if those trends are connected to, or let's go back to the original subject, like seasonal trends. Like, people would be more forgiving on typos when it's a super sappy romance, or people are more forgiving when it's a horror, or I don't know if there's a connection in there. I honestly haven't looked into that, but it would be interesting to see a curve in there as well.
I think it does. It's more acceptable to see them in genre fiction as opposed to literary fiction, or even the indie published versus traditionally published. There is a definite, I wouldn't say stigmatism, maybe stigmatism, but there is a definite sort of line in the sand between the two in that regard, between genre fiction and literary fiction. And I've seen the debates of which is better, and I just sit back and I let people go, because I love all of it. I don't put one above the other. One, for me, does not define quality over the other. They all have their merit for the people that they're writing to, and the readers that they're trying to reach. So you see the same thing with self-published versus traditionally published. You've got that sort of debate, that line in the sand of who's better than whom, and I just refuse to play along that line, because I've seen quality in self-published authors who put out a book, and I've seen absolute crap from somebody who hasn't put out a book in 3 years, and then they put this trying to. And vice versa. There are some amazing traditionally published authors who I absolutely love, and there's my go-tos when I'm writing, and then there's some self-published material out there which is just cringeworthy. So, you know, there.
Yeah, it's not a black and white world, and I think that's something very important to understand.
Yeah.
When you're a self-published author, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Trends definitely really do affect the sort of that definition as well. You know, is it a Christmas story that we've seen again and again and again? And I bring up the Hallmark, you know, the woman city corporate job goes home to this small town, and she falls in love, she gives up her career. And I'm actually starting to see trends on social media where people are sick of that, because they're like, why does she have to give up her career? So maybe this is like a feminist trend, I'm not sure. But you know, you see it sort of affecting the quality of what's being put out in that trend as well. Like, you know, are these tropes becoming too overdone? I've seen it with fairies, elves, dragons. These are all, you know, especially being an urban fantasy author, these are all, you know, sort of these common themes and character types that, you know, you see in fantasy, and you get sick to death of it. And you're like, I've read this book before. So that can really affect the trends in the industry of what is going to be considered, you know, a good book at that time. So that's, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be seasonal. A trend can be something that's, you know, a little bit longer. I think fairies in particular had a pretty good, and it's still going really strong. Because like I can think of Winx, the saga on, you know, so fairies are, you know, they had a pretty good run for like 5 years where the industry in fantasy was just swamped with them, and then it kind of lulled a little bit because people got a little bit tired of it, and now it's sort of starting to grow again. So trends, you know, they come and go as well. So going back to sort of trends in the market, and as we wrap up this season of the Reading Writers podcast, you know, I think this is one of the most important pieces of advice that we can give you until we come back to you next year is, you know, really watch the trends that are coming through the holidays, and, you know, that way you can sort of start planning ahead so that when we bring you the new material and the new season, you're prepared. You're like, okay, I'm going to write this book for this particular market and this trend, or I'm going to write this book for, you know, this season or holiday or something like that. So, you know, do your research. Take the next couple of months, do your research, and then when we come back to you, we're going to be able to start really digging into the craft of writing and some of the, you know, little nitpicky things that you can do to really reach your audience, your reader community, and then hopefully, you know, with the whole purpose of this podcast, help you sell more books and become, you know, that full-time author if that's the career that you're going for.
As we announced at the opening of today's episode, Red Ink is taking a break to enjoy the holidays with our families, get some rest, and prepare ourselves for Season 2, which will start in early spring 2022. And so to wrap up 2021 with a bang, it's time to celebrate the season of gifts and presents. To thank you all for a wonderful kickoff of our very first season, we are giving away some really awesome things. For example, there is a copy of Lydia Stevens' Hell Hath No Fury Like a Mercenary Scorned. There is a copy of my fully illustrated Singularian Grimoire Anthology, an exclusive Red Ink Writers mug, and much, much more, which we will leave as a surprise. Now, if you want to get your hands on this goodie bag filled with awesomeness to take you through the months of winter, all you have to do is go to redinkwriters.com/giveaway. We'll ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you want to increase your chances of winning, you can get more points by subscribing to our newsletters. Don't wait too long, because this giveaway closes for entries on December the 19th. Well, folks, that's a wrap for Season 1, and we really hope you've enjoyed the start of our show, and we would really like to thank you for following us and joining us on this incredible journey. Don't forget to enter the raffle, and be sure to stay tuned for some brand new short content videos while we prepare a Class A Season 2 for you. Until that time, remember, you've got this, even if you don't know what the fuck you're doing.